Okay. So so it is the 12th of August, 2025. Welcome everybody. It's good to see you guys here and taking an interest. The photos here on this first slide are just simply of Hassall descendants through our family line, just as something just to put on the slide, just to dress it up a little bit. So I am Ann Brockhurst, or that's me there, that's my maiden name, Curtis, and I descend from Ann Hassall, who was the youngest daughter of Roland Hassall and youngest surviving daughter, sorry, of Roland Hassall and Elizabeth Hancocks. Now, the brief that Graham set out for this series of presentations asked the line coordinators to present some new historical information about our Hassall line. And I could easily present you with some historical information. My family line has some amazing stories, but then the presentation would be about a family that you cannot automatically connect to, because my Hassall line effectively stopped in 1830 when Ann Hassall married Robert Mackay Campbell. Then the family names that the family branches out to are Campbell, McCallum, and Antill, amongst others, which you guys probably wouldn't really connect to, although the Campbell name should be familiar, as they seem quite partial to marrying their Hassall cousins, which was very much accepted in the day. So a few of you will have my Campbell cousins as your Campbell cousins too. And as you can see, Ann Hassall married at St. John's Church, as did nearly all of her siblings, except James, I think. So I'd have to check on that. So I thought I would talk about someone that we are all connected to, and that someone is, of course, our grandmother, Elizabeth Hancocks. And I appreciate that she was grandma way back in the 1800s, but tonight she's just grandma, and I always refer to females by their maiden name when I'm talking about my family history, as there are so many Anns and Elizabeths that it starts to getting complicated. So I'll keep calling her Elizabeth Hancocks. I won't go into her life as such, but rather I will focus on the painting that we have seen so many times, as I have had quite a few questions about it lately. I'll leave it up to you to decide if I've actually revealed a new historical fact or not. So whenever my family discussed Elizabeth, they always referred to her as Eliza, and I have found some other documents and newspaper articles that have referred to her as Eliza as well. And as we all know, she was born in Coventry in 1766, and she was 27 years old when she married young Roland, who was 25. And I find this interesting because 27 was seen as a bit elderly to be getting married. And I wonder if her skills as a weaver and lace maker kept her single and working in her father's factory for an extended amount of time, because he too was a weaver and a lace maker. The Industrial Revolution was happening at this time between 1760 and 1840, and the weavers and the lace makers were quite huge. They were sort of one of the first bands of workers to make like a union. And when this whole Industrial Revolution came along, they used to strike, and you know they fought back because they were all losing their jobs. So they were pretty huge, but this is all just speculation, of course, for in Elizabeth's case. But one observation I will make, Jean Stewart's book says that Elizabeth Hancocks signed her marriage certificate with only an X, indicating that she could not read or write when she married Roland. Given that the family focused quite sharply on schooling later on and were quite involved in their Sunday schools, which of course included reading and writing, I wonder if Elizabeth Hancocks learnt to read and write as an adult. She had a variety of interests to run once Roland had passed away, and she was quite successful too. So she would have really had to have picked up some skills in that sort of way. The family made sure that all their children, both male and female, had some form of education, which was quite forward-thinking of the time. And I hope my observations support this. Oops, next slide. So anyway, back to the painting. The questions I am so often asked are, how did it get to be in my family in particular? How did it come into the hands of the Mitchell Library? And who painted it? I mean, Thomas was the eldest. He was kind of like the golden head boy. How come he didn't get the painting? So my family held Elizabeth in very high regard. She was a heroine type figure. She was always spoken of as successful and a fighter type. And in fact, my family hardly ever mentioned Roland at all. It was Elizabeth that sort of went on after he died and kept things together, albeit with the help of her sons, of course. But she was sort of like, yeah, the heroine, as I said. She had very delicate hands and she could create the most intricate of lace work. These skills were passed down to her daughters, and my mother has some lace pieces that have come down through the Campbell families. Now, Ann Hassall had a daughter named Ann Campbell. You can see how this gets confusing. And Ann Campbell married a man named Argyle McCallum. Argyle McCallum was a prolific writer and socialist. He wrote books on how government should support those less fortunate. He paid the medical bills of all the Aboriginal people who resided near his home, and he was a big supporter of women's rights. This was in the later years of the 1800s. And this has been great for me, as I've been able to do quite a lot of research on Trove. He must have written a letter once a month. There's heaps there. Argyle McCallum was the first man to grow lucerne, make silage on the Murrumbidgee River. He was also one of the first men to breed merino sheep in the Yass district, and he invented and put a patent on the salt lick, which, for those who have farmed, we use little blocks of salt now to improve the health of our animals, but he invented like this trough with salt in it. And my cats have just decided to have a fight. He was, by all accounts, a beautiful and progressive man who very much supported the women in his life. Now, Ann Campbell and Argyle McCallum had 9 children. He was certainly a busy man. Sadly, 2 children died young, including their daughter, Ann McCallum, and only 3 of those surviving 7 children married. Of those marriages, there were only 4 children born. So you can see how this branch is not spread out much. One of Ann Campbell and Argyle McCallum's children was a daughter named Jessie, who initially got rejected from university back in the 1920s because she was a woman. So she changed the spelling of her name to a male spelling, got into university, and was one of the first female pharmacists in Australia. She had a chemist at Watson's Bay for many years. Another daughter, Alberta, became one of the first nurses in Australia to study psychiatry. Aunt Ruth was a nurse, and Aunt Una worked in a bakery. All the children, including all the females, worked all their lives, just like Grandma Elizabeth Hancock's. Remember her weaving and lace making, then her administration of her family's interests after Roland's death. The children of Ann Campbell and Argyle McCallum were fondly known as the old aunts. Argyle McCallum died in 1912, and his wife Ann Campbell went on to live till she was 92 years of age, passing away in 1940. Remember, she is a grandchild of Roland and Elizabeth. Ann Campbell and her daughters, Alberta, Una, Ruth, and Jessie, all lived together under the one roof all their lives, apart from Jessie, who married very briefly and had one child much later in life. The marriage didn't last long. Alberta travelled the world, and she tried to research Hassall and Campbell families, but records were not easily available at the time. But her writing suggests that she visited many places connected to the families. Alberta was a regular contributor to Louisa Lawson's publication, The Dawn, Louisa Lawson being poet Henry Lawson's mother and well-known suffragette. So once again, back to the painting. So it was passed down from Elizabeth Hancock's to her daughter Ann Hassall to her daughter Ann Campbell. It always hung above the fireplace. Elizabeth Hancock's was the queen goddess in a house full of goddesses. Alberta, being the family historian, kept it after her mother's death, and it continued to hang in the home of the old aunts until her passing in 1961. My actual grandmother, or my mother's mother, Roma Faith McCallum, was the one who ended up being the executor of all the estates in the family, and she knew the significance of Elizabeth Hancock's and her role in the early family story. She knew that Elizabeth Hassall was greatly admired, and she knew that the Campbells and a few others in the family were having little known wars at the time. And so to protect the painting, Roma Faith McCallum donated it to the Mitchell Library. My mother was a teenager at the time, and she said that the painting was scary and haunted. And she said that Elizabeth's eyes would follow her around the room. In the 1960s, there was also a bit of a surge in colonial history, and it was much more fashionable to come from colonial stock than from convict stock. So people would write into the newspapers of the day with items of interest, and many of these items of interest were family history related. Family historian A.D. Campbell, who is doubly related to the Hassall family, as he is a descendant himself, and then he married a Hassall just to complicate and mess up everyone's family tree, had also by this time done a lot of Hassall research and thankfully sent it all into the Mitchell Library. And here are some examples, and I'm sure if anyone's researched on Trove, you put in Hassall, doesn't matter what era, you'll get heaps of hits. And these are the type of articles that people used to write in with. And this slide is just the receipts and certificates that my grandmother got. She also donated the little school tickets, and I believe the little medal that Ann Hassall was awarded back at Sunday school. So who painted it? When it was donated, Roma McCallum simply said that it was painted in about 1800, but there is no exact date known. Roma said it was painted by a convict who worked for the Hassall family. As far as I know, there is no signature, and I'm sure the library people would have gone all over it to find one, but I'd love to have a look myself. One has to ask, how would a convict have access to a canvas and oils, considering the infancy of the colony at the time, and the fact that most convicts came to Australia with nothing more than the clothes they were wearing when they were tried at the Old Bailey? I know nothing about art, but in my very brief 20-minute research for this topic, I found that there were a few convicts who, once they had been pardoned, had set up studios, and portraiture became quite a fashion there for a while. A lot of artists focused on miniatures or very small little paintings that their subjects would send back to the homeland, knowing full well that their relatives would never see them in the flesh again. But the painting of Elizabeth Hassall is quite a sizable piece, and I don't believe it was intended to be sent back home. Some of the convict artists had been tried for forgery, and the Hassall family did employ a convict by the name of James Bradley, who had been convicted for forgery, but I've not been able to find any information about him being a painter. And I'm very grateful to the Mitchell librarian who kindly has taken some photos for me and sent them via email. And this is the photo of the painting as it is today. And beside the photo is the remarks that are with it in the catalogue online. You will see the name William Griffith, and in many resources online and in print, William Griffith has been attributed to as being the painter of the portrait of Elizabeth Hassall. Don't get excited. William Griffith was born in 1808 and trained in portraiture in France. He immigrated to Australia in 1840 and set up a studio in Parramatta and had a thriving business there for a while until some smart person introduced the daguerreotype photos to the colony, and everyone started getting their photos taken, which was probably a much more efficient way of recording how a person looked. These small daguerreotypes were not much bigger than a pack of cards and were easily posted back to the homeland. William Griffith only lasted in the colony for about 10 years, and when demand for his work subsided, he jumped on a ship and sailed off, never to be heard from again. The problem with attributing William Griffith as the artist is the fact that Elizabeth Hassall died in 1834, 6 years before William Griffith arrived in the colony. But what's the story with this drawing? Also held by the Mitchell Library is a drawing, which, as you can, when you look at the painting, looks remarkably similar. And this drawing is labelled as being Mrs. Rowland Hassall and drawn in 1842. And remember, she passed away in 1834. The drawing is pretty much identical. hang on, sorry. There we go. There's the photo and there's the drawing side by side. You can see that the collar is slightly different and the eyes are a little bit softer, look a little less scary. Unless there was another Roland Hassall in 1842, I doubt it. But my theory is that someone has drawn the painting, like a copy for another member of the family. Now, this is a picture of William Walker, who was married to Eliza Cordelia Hassall. And you'll see down in the right-hand corner that it is signed by William Griffith. The drawing, neither the drawing or the painting are signed by William Griffith. And you can see, like, William Walker, it's a little bit different style, although the book looks the same. I don't know. And I just put this here, although I couldn't get it very clear. This is from the Cessation of Matavai by Robert Smirkey. And you can see Elizabeth depicted here is quite fine, which is what my family always said. She had very fine features, fine hands. The painting is certainly, you know, she looks quite fine featured. The Cessation of Matavai painting is, although it wasn't painted till 1829, and they were gone from Tahiti, I think 1798, 1797, so nearly 30 years after they even left. And I'm not even sure if Robert Smirkey, the artist, had even met Elizabeth to know what she looked like. I just don't know. So I've just included here, this is Ann Campbell's obituary in 1940. And note the Hassall name, like over 100 years past Hassall's being really in the colony, the family is still attributing themselves to Hassall. They really like that the connection there. So they're very, very proud of it. So is this new historical information or more mysteries? And just for fun, here are some more Hassall goddesses that exist today, like children. I think further research needs to be done about the origins of the drawing, who donated it, etc. I think it is a copy of the painting possibly done for another family member so that they could remember such a wonderful lady, even though there are some subtle differences. I think that possibly the original painting was done a little bit later than 1800. It's just hard to know. And possibly after the death of Roland, which would maybe explain why there isn't a painting of him. But I don't think we'll ever know. So many questions, but I'm so grateful that the painting survived until 1960 in my family, because sadly not much else did. I do lean a little towards John Bradley being the artist. He was convicted for forgery, meaning he had some sort of talent. He was employed as a teacher around 1830, but he fell foul of the Hassalls because he opened up his own Sunday school, which went in competition to the Hassall Sunday School, and they didn't really like that much, so they asked him to leave. So he was actually teaching the younger girls, Susanna and Anne and Eliza. And he could have even taught, and my point of putting him there was he could have even taught Elizabeth Hancock's and then had a close association with her, and hence the painting might have come about. Who'd know? And I just included that there just to show you the Anns. Ann Hope McCallum was essentially the last Ann to be named after the Hassalls. My name, Ann, is in memory of all these Anns. My mother, up until I was born, was going to call me Kayleen, but at the last minute called me Ann in memory of all the previous Anns throughout the family. And that's it. Oh, how do I get back?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anne, we'll just send your slide share.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I think you just have to stop share.
Oh, yeah, there it is there. Sorry.
Thank you.
That's good. Beautiful.
And that was outstanding.
Yeah.
So much new information and so many questions.
Yeah, I
And-
don't think I actually presented to you any new historical fact. Yeah, but I'm just hopeful. You talked about your project now of that book, which I think it will be really interesting. And all we need is one person to say, you know, Mum sat for this portrait with, and I'm hoping that sort of comes up in other people's research. So that, and that was really my idea with putting this information forward today, just to put that in the back of people's minds, and just so that if they see that name or what have you, might be able to correlate. But I think it was William Griffith.
And just a couple of questions.
Yeah.
The photo that's framed, that's in the library.
Yeah.
And what size is it?
Oh, I'd have to look it up again. It's quite large. Yeah. It's
Like, are you talking 2 feet?
Oh, no. I think it's like 40 centimeters by something like that.
It's
right.
80 by 66 centimeters.
Oh, there you go. Even bigger.
And when do you know when it was actually framed? Did they?
No.
Because
I couldn't tell you if that's even the original frame.
Yes, because I was just wondering, that thick, ornate, goldy coloured.
It's
frame,
beautiful. Yeah.
I was wondering when that was actually popped onto the drawing, because I don't know. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, I think. But yeah, I honestly, yeah, I honestly don't know.
Could there be secrets hidden behind the frame and we have to take it off and see if there's something written on the back?
I'm not 100% sure the librarians are going to like it if we did that.
No, I don't think they would.
But
I'm wondering if they might do it, you know, officially or something like that. It's, you know, if the frame has been there for a long time, who knows what's, you know, behind.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and if it's been there a long time, maybe it needs redoing, so we could have it encouraged to let us have a look, because I wonder, did they leave notes or write on the backs of those things, or write on the edge of the frame in any way?
It's really it's possible, you know. I think that is a possibility, and you're right. I would love to pull it to pieces, but yeah,
But put it back together again. But
yeah. I honestly,
you could actually write to them and say, if it's in a state where they're ever going to redo it, could they have it on their records that you're to be contacted, or somebody's to be contacted, so we could actually be there and watch it happening? But no doubt they've got to.
Well, my next sort of thing with it was I was going to send another email and just get more information about who donated the drawing, maybe, you know, some more information about that. And yeah, I will ask some more questions about the painting, and just see if there's anything more there.
So going back to the painting, there was one shot that you showed that was very ruby red. Is that the colour that is in the library?
That's correct. Yeah.
That is.
Oh, so there was the very first one was a copy that Andrew, he made those laminated. It came from that. So maybe it's the laminate that's made more ruby.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering whether that was original colours that it was painted.
No, maybe that. I think that because that's a picture of the one that Andrew did. I just used that one because it brought it up a little bit more.
Oh, okay.
And I wonder if the laminate has made it more ruby.
Right.
Yeah.
What is the condition of the painting?
The photo of it, that's as it is today. It's in very good condition, I believe. Yeah, for it. I mean, it's quite old. It's so old. Yeah.
So when you showed that in your slide, it shows that it's sitting on the floor. So does that mean it's not hung anywhere?
No, it's not hung anywhere. The librarian went down into the dungeon of the library and found it and took a photo of it for me.
Does it ever get an airing or a viewing? Because there is a floor that's designated for a lot of those photos. I just wondered whether they ever rotated them.
I'm unsure. I don't know.
Or is there a chance that we can, if we went in and had a research day there, would they bring it out for us to have?
That would be something that if I ever did go down for another research day, like we did that other time, that I would specifically ask for. Yeah.
Why not ask in advance? And that might make us spur on to get
Yeah.
a day.
You throw that
could
date
have it.
at me. You throw that date at me and I'll get in touch with them. Yeah, I'd be
because
more
wouldn't
than
that be
happy.
exciting if she could
Yes.
be sitting there all day while we go through whatever, all the
And
other
she can be
aims.
staring at us and haunting us.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
that thought too. So I think you've given us some real content for our Sydney research meeting, and we'll make sure that it happens at a time that you can be there, Anne, for that.
Yeah.
And
the
also,
drawing as well. Yeah.
and that almost drives looking at the women, as you said, the angle of the women in the Hassall family as well.
Yeah, I love that about them. And as I said, my family were very suffragette and what have you, and they weren't having kids and what. And yeah, like I said, my grandmother always spoke about Elizabeth Hancock's like she was the goddess of the whole, matriarch of the whole family, essentially. Yeah. So she must.
And can we talk about sources for your story? You've mentioned things, for example, that in your family, Elizabeth was referred to more than Roland.
Yeah.
And then talking about what your grandmother said. Now, do you have that story about the Sunday school? So I don't know that story. So how do you get that story? Is it written or is it something that's been handed down orally to you?
Is that the John Bradley?
Yeah.
That was in Jean Stewart's book.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
terms of records in your family, it sounds like those and those sort of daughters and grandchildren of Anne Campbell were just real interesting characters. And does the family have letters written by them?
I have a bunch of typed manuscript. There was the beginnings of not a book so much, but a written account. I don't know why it was never finished. I don't know any other stories, but yeah, I do have what looks like the beginnings of some sort of manuscript. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So perhaps any questions from Margaret and Spence? And
just really a comment rather than a question. I was intrigued when you said Aunt Jessie became a pharmacist in the 1920s. I've just finished reading Kate Grenville's book, One Life, which is about her mother, who became one of the first female pharmacists in the 1920s. It just seemed to be an interesting alignment.
I think she graduated around 1929.
I can't remember the exact dates from the book, but yeah, we read it for our book club, and it was just it was a very interesting history. I liked her writing, but it was a memoir on her mother from those days.
Oh wow, okay.
And yes, it was. I actually find those stories quite interesting about like the suffragette type things that they had to go through just to get jobs, get a university degree, that sort of thing. I assume though she would have been in New South Wales.
Yes, Watson's Bay, Sydney. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Kate Grenville's mother was in Melbourne University. So they may not have met, but it just was the book's called One Life by Kate Grenville.
Because I've just read another book called One Free Woman by Jane Smith. And it is by a convict. Just 2 seconds, I'll grab it.
Yep.
Here it is. I don't know if you can see that. One Free Woman.
Yeah, hold it up a bit higher so I can see the author. Jane Smith. Okay, yep.
Yeah, and there is a very brief mention. It's making a lot of noise.
Mm.
Very brief mention of Samuel Marsden in it, which is
Mhm.
about the only relation to our family. But that's about a convict woman, and that was a really good read as well.
Okay. I might get onto that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's new. It's only new out, so yeah.
And where's your next line of research?
I would like to reconnect with the Burrower family, and try and get all those Campbells, because one lady wrote to me, and I just, like, everything else has just got in the way, and I just haven't got back to the poor woman. So it'd be really interesting. Like, as I said, my family had their wars back in the days, and they all lost contact as everybody sort of spread out, but a lot of time's gone by now, and I don't even know half the people. So it'd be nice to reconnect, because you don't know what resources they have. Like, I've got a piece of lace made by Elizabeth Hancock's. They may have other little bits and pieces and photos and stuff too.
You don't have that on hand sitting right beside you so we can have a bit of a look.
2 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, so unfortunately, my mother made it into a hairpiece for a fancy dress. So yeah, can you see that?
Ah, yeah.
So yeah,
I'd
and
love to pick it up. Yeah.
yeah, it's just
And
Yeah.
magnificent. And some other little bits of ribbon as well.
is that Elizabeth Hancock's, the ribbon?
Yeah, Elizabeth Hassall, Elizabeth Hancock's.
Because they were ribbon weavers, weren't they? Silk ribbon weavers, and
lace makers.
and
Yeah,
that was very specialised, being that silk ribbon. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Now,
Yeah.
one question I'd like to know: where did they get their silk from?
I don't know. Especially over here, and it's like, these don't feel like silk. They feel a little bit harder, but I don't know. Mum did have it looked at one time, and they said it's definitely from that era, like late 1700s, early 1800 type era. But
So
I've got no idea.
It doesn't have to be kept in something to.
I've got it in a dirty old Tupperware container. Yeah.
Tupperware's fine. Yeah.
So it's not going to fall apart soon.
It doesn't.
Hardy.
It's incredibly sturdy. Like, I would never try and pull it or anything, but it looks incredibly sturdy. Yeah. I don't exactly know what the material is. It doesn't feel like silk. Like, it's not soft. It feels really coarse.
Well, raw silk is actually.
Yeah, maybe it is. Yeah, I don't know enough about it, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, I was wondering where they did they breed it all there?
Yeah, the silkworms or something, maybe. Yeah.
And did they only well, here I am asking questions, but did they only weave in silk, or were they weaving in cotton and other things as well?
I don't know enough about. I'm a nurse. I don't know enough about it. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No,
done any research in that sort of area.
So if we had that research day, it would be lovely to have those pieces of silk with her picture, because in that picture it just could be a pattern that looks similar to the patterns that you've got.
Yeah. And the collar that she's wearing is also held by the Mitchell Library. So that would be another thing that we would get out and compare the two. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the collar that she wears in that painting. Grandma also donated that, so they should have that in a box somewhere too.
And that bonnet.
I'm not sure about the bonnet. Yeah.
Oh, oh, well, that's 3 pieces, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just with regard to your drawings, Mary's husband, Walter Laurie, went back to England, I think, in, I'm not quite sure when he went back, probably the 1820s.
Yeah.
And came back out in about, I think, about the 1950s. But when he came back out, he brought out 2 paintings with him that were small scenes of little places that took his fancy in England, just as memorials. And
Okay.
we found close copies of them in paintings that had been done back in the day, and we had them properly conserved, and came to the conclusion that back in the day there was no photocopiers as we have today, so a lot of the good pictures that people liked were reproduced by very skilled copyists.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the ones that we have are unsigned, so I think they are copies of an original but cannot be signed because either the copier or the
Oh, rightio. Yeah.
have their signature on it, the original artist.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know, show you those ones when we get around to
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
them, right?
Yeah. Well, there is a article in the newspaper. There was an Oakes family member. Oakes sort of comes into the family, and he wrote a lot of family history as well. And he interviewed a Catherine that was related, and she did mention. So there are quite a few mentions of the painting of Elizabeth Hassall. So yeah, and that it was done by a convict. So, but unfortunately, they just don't say who. Yeah.
Well, and
Where were
go ahead, Alison, please go ahead.
I'm sorry. Where were your parents living when they had the painting? Was it in country New South Wales? Are they Burrawa people?
No,
So
they.
I was just wondering where that painting has actually travelled to out of.
Okay, so we
Parramatta.
would have been at Burrawa there for a while at a place called Ann's Vale.
Oh, yes.
That was the property there, and there was another property, Beverley, as well. But the McCallums had the property called Good Hope at Yass. And then once that was resumed by the Burrinjuck Dam, all the old spinsters basically congregated in a house at Castle Hill, which I believe is on the outskirts of Sydney. Yeah, yeah. So it hung in the fireplace mostly there.
Right, and then it went to the library after that.
Yeah, once Aunt Bert had passed. Yeah. I think their last old aunt died in 1973, but Bert was the one who held the family history, and nobody else was interested in it. And they were all fighting and squabbling at the time. So to protect the painting, my grandmother donated it to the Mitchell Library. Yeah.
Lucky us.
I know, because a lot of other stuff ended up on the fire. So
Oh wow. Yes. As it does in a lot of families.
yeah.
Well, Anne, thanks so much for this presentation tonight. It's been a great contribution to the series, and we look forward to your future historical endeavors in your family line. It's a very rich contribution that you're making. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Graham. I hope somebody got something out of it, and I appreciated. You wanted something to do with Ann Hassall, but I was struggling to find something that would be relevant to everybody. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Very interesting. Thanks, Anne. We'll be in touch about the painting in the library, etc.
Yeah, I'd love to get it out. Yeah, would really love to.
Well, that's a good impetus to get us going, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.